On a freezing New Year's Eve, a wealthy man heard two small voices counting in a dark alley. He didn't know their names. He didn't know their story. But one quiet decision led him to a home, a family, and a miracle no one saw coming. The city of Boston held its breath on New Year's Eve. Snow drifted lazily through the air, softening the edges of buildings and muting the usual noise of celebration. Fireworks cracked faintly in the distance, but here downtown streets lay nearly empty, just streetlights, cold wind, and the quiet hum of a year coming to an end. Ethan Hale, 42, walked alone. His tailored coat spoke of wealth, success, a life carefully built. Yet his footsteps echoed with a different truth, one of silence. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Invitations, unanswered, parties, declined, champagne flutes, waiting somewhere without him. He kept walking. Ethan had learned long ago that noise didn't always mean warmth. He preferred the cold honesty of the night. No expectations, no forced smiles. Just snow beneath his shoes and thoughts he couldn't outrun. As he crossed a narrow side street, the wind cut sharper, slipping under his collar. He pulled it tighter, exhaling slowly. Another year finished. Another year survived. He thought of home, of the single lamp always left on in the living room, of his mother Margaret, fragile but stubbornly awake, insisting she would wait until he returned. She said the light made the house feel less empty. Ethan glanced at the sky. Midnight was approaching. That was when he heard it. Not laughter, not shouting. Something quieter, something fragile. A sound almost swallowed by the wind, so soft it could have been imagined. Ethan stopped. The city kept moving without him, but he stood still, heart-slowing, instincts stirring. The sound came again, barely a whisper, drifting from a narrow alley to his right. For a moment he hesitated, then, without fully understanding why, Ethan turned toward the darkness. The alley was narrow, shadowed, and dusted with fresh snow. Ethan stepped carefully, his polished shoes crunching softly. He didn't call out. He didn't rush. Something told him not to break the quiet too harshly. The sound came again. A whisper. Two voices close together, counting slowly. 27. 28. Ethan frowned. Children. That realization landed gently but firmly in his chest. He stopped several steps away, allowing his eyes to adjust. Under the weak glow of a flickering security light, he saw them. Two small figures sat side by side against the brick wall. They were twins, no older than 7. Matching knitted hats pulled low over blonde hair. Coats too thin for the cold, but neatly buttoned. Their hands were clasped together, fingers intertwined as if they shared warmth that way. They weren't crying. They weren't panicking. They were waiting. Ethan crouched slowly, making sure his movements stayed calm, predictable. "Hey," he said gently, his voice low and even. "I didn't mean to scare you." The girls looked up together. Wide blue eyes met his, not fearful but cautious. The kind of caution learned from being quiet, from watching closely. "We're okay," the one on the left said. Her voice was steady for someone so small. "We're just resting." Ethan nodded as if that explanation made perfect sense. "My name's Ethan," he offered. "It's very cold to be resting outside tonight." The other twin tilted her head. "It's New Year's Eve," she said softly. "It's supposed to change after midnight." Something tightened in Ethan's chest. He glanced at the empty street behind him, at the glowing windows far away, at the alley that should have been empty but wasn't. "Do you have somewhere warm to go?" he asked carefully. The twins exchanged a look, silent, shared. Then the first girl answered, honest and calm. "Not yet." Ethan stayed crouched. He didn't reach for them. He didn't tell them what to do. He remembered how power could feel frightening when it moved too fast. "What are your names?" he asked. "I'm Lily," said the confident one. "And I'm Rose," the other added, her fingers tightening around her sister's hand. Ethan smiled faintly. "Those are beautiful names." Snow settled on the shoulders of their coats, melting slowly. Rose shivered, barely noticeable, but Ethan saw it. "There's a cafe still open a few blocks away," he said. "They make good soup. And hot chocolate." The girls looked up at him again. "Is it loud?" Rose asked. "No," Ethan said immediately. "It's quiet." Lily studied his face, searching for something unseen. "You're not in a hurry," she said. It wasn't a question. Ethan shook his head. "I can wait." The alley seemed to hold its breath. "Can we call someone?" Lily asked next. "Like, someone official?" "Yes," Ethan replied without hesitation. "We can do that. We should do that." That answer mattered. After a moment, Lily nodded. Rose followed. Together they stood. They were smaller than Ethan had expected. Lighter too, like children who had learned not to take up much space. "My house is closer than the cafe," Ethan said carefully. "There's heat. And my mother is there. She's kind." The twins exchanged another silent conversation. Then Lily spoke. "Okay," she said simply. "But we walk together." Ethan held out his hands, not touching, just offering. Lily took one, Rose took the other. As they stepped out of the alley and into the softly falling snow, the city clock began to chime, counting down the final minutes of the year. None of them knew it yet, but this was the moment everything quietly changed. They walked slowly. Ethan adjusted his pace without thinking, matching the short, careful steps of Lily and Rose. Snow fell steadily now, thicker than before, turning the street into something almost unreal, quiet white suspended between years. Neither girl spoke. Their hands were small and his gloved but still cold. Ethan resisted the urge to squeeze too tightly. He remembered how overwhelming kindness could feel when you weren't ready for it. So he said gently after a while, "Do you like fireworks?" Rose shook her head. "They're loud." Lily nodded. "And they end too fast." Ethan smiled at that. "That's true." They passed storefronts decorated with fading holiday lights. Inside, people laughed, toasted, counted down. Outside, the world felt different, slower, more honest. "My house is just ahead," Ethan said, pointing to a row of townhouses partially hidden by bare trees. One window glowed warmly, a soft amber light against the cold blue night. "That light's always on," Rose observed. "For my mom," Ethan replied. "She says it helps her feel less alone." Lily considered that. "Lights help," she said quietly. As they reached the front steps, Ethan paused. He turned slightly so he was facing them, lowering himself again to their eye level. "Before we go in," he said calmly, "I want you to know something. You're not trapped. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, we stop. We call someone. We do this the right way." The girls listened carefully. "You promise?" Rose asked. "I promise," Ethan said without hesitation. Lily nodded once satisfied. Ethan unlocked the door. Warmth spilled out immediately. Heat, the faint scent of tea, something baked earlier in the evening. The contrast was almost shocking. "Ethan," a woman's voice called softly from inside. "Is that you, sweetheart?" "Yes, Mom," he replied. Then after a breath, "I brought company." Lily's grip tightened just slightly. Ethan opened the door fully. Margaret Hale sat in her favorite armchair, wrapped in a thick shawl, a book resting unopened in her lap. She looked smaller than Ethan remembered from childhood. Her illness having thinned her frame, but her eyes, warm alert, lifted immediately when she saw him. Then she saw the girls. Margaret didn't gasp. She didn't ask questions. She simply smiled. "Oh," she said softly, as if greeting an expected guest. "You must be freezing." Lily and Rose froze instead, uncertain. Ethan waited, heart-thudding, ready to intervene if needed. Margaret slowly set her book aside and opened her arms, not wide, not demanding, just open enough to be an invitation. "You're safe here," she said gently. "You don't have to come closer if you don't want to." Rose looked up at Ethan. He nodded, reassuring but neutral. The choice was theirs. After a moment, Lily took one small step forward. then another. Rose followed. Margaret draped a blanket around both of them, her movements careful, respectful. She didn't pull them in, she let them lean into her if they wished. They did. Ethan felt something shift inside his chest. "I'll make something warm," he said quietly, retreating toward the kitchen. As water heated and soup warmed, he listened. Margaret's voice floated through the room, low, soothing, telling a simple story about how the house used to look when Ethan was little. No probing. No pressure. When Ethan returned, he found Lily and Rose seated on the couch, wrapped in the blanket like one shared cocoon. Steam rose from the bowls he handed them. Rose whispered, "Thank you." Lily added, "It smells like home." Margaret's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears away. Outside, distant fireworks cracked as midnight approached. Inside, the clock ticked. Margaret glanced at Ethan. "It's almost the new year." Ethan nodded. "I know." Lily looked up. "Does it change right away?" Margaret smiled. "Not all at once," she said. "But sometimes, quietly." The clock chimed. Midnight, no cheers, no shouting, just 3 people sitting together, breathing warm. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel the year end. He felt something begin. Ethan checked his phone and frowned. A message from his business partner blinked on the screen, urgent. A final document needed signing before morning. Normally, he would have ignored it. Tonight, he hesitated. "I need to step out for a bit," he said reluctantly, lowering himself in front of Lily and Rose. "Just for a few hours." Rose's shoulders stiffened. "I'll be back before morning," Ethan added quickly. "And I won't leave unless it's okay." Margaret placed a hand over his. "Go," she said calmly. "I've got them." Ethan searched her face. She looked stronger, more present than she had in months. "You're sure?" he asked. She nodded. "Very sure." He turned to the girls. "I promise I'll come back," he said gently. "And I promise we'll call someone official tomorrow. Together." Lily studied him. Then she nodded. "Okay." Rose hesitated, then reached out and squeezed his hand. "Don't forget." "I won't," Ethan said, voice thick. As he put on his coat, he glanced back. Margaret had begun showing the girls an old photo album, her voice animated. Lily leaned in, curious. Rose smiled faintly. The house felt different, alive. Ethan stepped back into the cold night snow, crunching beneath his shoes. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself he was doing the right thing. But as he walked away, a strange thought settled in his chest, quiet, undeniable. Whatever waited for him when he returned, nothing would ever be the same. The night outside deepened. Snow continued to fall soft and patient, coating the city in white silence. Inside the townhouse, the clock ticked steadily, its sound no longer lonely, but rhythmic like a heartbeat, returning after a long pause. Margaret sat with Lily and Rose at the dining table, now the blanket still draped around their shoulders. She moved carefully, conserving energy, but her eyes were bright, alive in a way they hadn't been for months. "Would you like to see something?" she asked. Lily nodded immediately. Rose hesitated, then nodded too. Margaret reached into a drawer and pulled out colored paper, dull scissors, a box of old markers. "Ethan used to make paper stars," she said fondly. "He insisted they protected the house." "That's logical," Lily said seriously. Margaret laughed, a soft, surprised sound that startled even herself. Rose picked up a marker and began to draw slowly, carefully. Lily folded paper with surprising precision. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Every so often, Margaret would pause to rest, leaning back slightly. Each time, Lily noticed. Each time, Lily quietly slid the paper closer so Margaret didn't have to reach. "You're very observant," Margaret said gently. Lily shrugged. "People get tired." Margaret swallowed. She realized then that the girls weren't fragile. They were careful. And as the minutes passed, something subtle happened. Margaret forgot to watch the clock. She forgot to measure her breaths. She forgot the ache that usually settled into her bones by evening. Instead, she watched Rose smile faintly at a crooked star. She listened as Lily explained why the folds had to be exact. She felt useful, needed, alive. When the first paper star was finished, Rose placed it gently on the table. "For your house," she said. Margaret placed her hand over it, emotion thick in her throat. "Thank you," she whispered. Outside, fireworks bloomed faintly in the distance, dull flashes behind clouds. Inside the house glowed quietly, as if remembering how warmth was supposed to feel. For the first time in a very long while, Margaret wasn't waiting for Ethan to come home. She was simply present. Ethan returned earlier than expected. The meeting ended quickly, signatures exchanged, formalities done. He barely remembered the drive home, his mind restless, tugged forward by something he couldn't name. As he approached the townhouse, he noticed the light. It was brighter than before. He unlocked the door quietly, expecting silence. Instead, he heard laughter. Not loud, not wild, gentle, unforced. Ethan froze. For a brief, irrational moment, he wondered if he had stepped into the wrong house. Then he heard his mother's voice, clear, warm, alive. He followed the sound, heart pounding, and stopped in the doorway of the living room. Margaret sat on the floor. On the floor. Lily and Rose were beside her, surrounded by paper stars, markers scattered like fallen confetti. A small pile of finished decorations rested near the tree. Margaret looked up and smiled. "You're back early." Ethan couldn't speak. His mother, who only weeks ago struggled to stand, was sitting upright, engaged, laughing softly, as Rose held up a misshapen star. "This one's special," Rose said. "It's not perfect." Margaret nodded solemnly. "Neither am I." Ethan swallowed hard. Lily noticed him then. "We made protection stars," she explained. "For the house." Ethan laughed quietly, emotion breaking through. "I used to do that," he said. Margaret raised an eyebrow. "You never mentioned how good you were." "I wasn't," Ethan replied. "But it mattered." He sank onto the couch, eyes never leaving the scene before him. The fatigue of the night melted away, replaced by something unfamiliar. Hope. Margaret caught his gaze. Something unspoken passed between them, a shared understanding that this wasn't coincidence. This was change. Rose yawned, suddenly leaning against Lily. "It's late," Margaret said gently. "New Year's has already begun." Ethan stood. "Let me help." As he gathered the paper stars, he realized something quietly terrifying. He wasn't afraid anymore. Not of responsibility. Not of tomorrow. He was afraid only of one thing: losing this. Morning arrived softly. No alarms, no urgency. Just pale winter light filtering through the curtains and the smell of tea drifting through the house. Ethan woke on the couch, disoriented for a moment, then remembered everything at once. He stood quickly. In the kitchen, Margaret sat at the table with Lily and Rose, each holding a mug of warm cocoa. They looked up as he entered. "Good morning," Lily said politely. Rose smiled sleepily. "Happy New Year." Ethan's chest tightened. "Happy New Year," he replied. Margaret watched him carefully. "We slept well," she said. "All of us." Ethan nodded, then took a breath. "Today we need to do a few important things." The girls listened. "We'll call someone official," he continued. "A social worker, so we can make sure everything is done the right way." Lily nodded immediately. "That's good," Rose asked quietly. "Can we stay here today?" "Yes," Ethan said without hesitation. "You're safe here." Later that morning, the doorbell rang. A woman stood outside, professional calm, clipboard in hand. "Claire Morgan," she said. "Child Protective Services." Ethan invited her in. Claire observed quietly, taking in the warmth, the order, the way Lily and Rose stayed close, but not fearful. She knelt to their level. "I'm here to help," she said. Lily met her gaze. "We're okay." Claire smiled softly. "I can see that." As paperwork began and questions were asked gently, respectfully, Ethan watched the girls draw at the table unafraid. Margaret squeezed his hand. Whatever came next would be complicated. Legal. Slow. But as Ethan looked at the paper stars still hanging from the tree, he knew one thing with certainty. This house had crossed into the new year together, and none of them were going back to how things were before. Claire Morgan stayed longer than Ethan expected. She didn't rush. She didn't pressure. She sat at the dining table, clipboard closed, watching Lily and Rose draw quietly, while Margaret prepared tea with careful movements. "This matters," Claire said finally, her voice calm. "Not just what happened last night, but how everyone feels right now." Ethan nodded. "Ask whatever you need." Claire turned to the girls kneeling so her eyes were level with theirs. "Lily Rose, I want to ask you a few questions. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to. Is that okay?" Lily glanced at Rose, then nodded. "Okay." "Did Mr. Hale force you to come here?" Claire asked gently. No, Rose answered right away. He asked, "And do you feel safe here?" "Yes," Lily said. "It's warm and quiet." Claire smiled slightly, jotting something down. Margaret watched silently, her hands folded in her lap. Ethan noticed how steady she seemed, how present. "Do you know where your parents are?" Claire asked next. The girls exchanged another look. "Our dad isn't with us," Lily said carefully. "He's far. And our mom, Rose, added softly, needs time." Claire didn't push further. She straightened and looked at Ethan. "Based on what I see, I'm comfortable approving a temporary placement. But this will be reviewed. Properly." Ethan exhaled slowly. "That's all I want." Paperwork followed. Signatures, clear explanations, boundaries established. "This isn't adoption," Claire reminded him. "It's protection, stability." Margaret spoke then, her voice gentle but firm. "That's exactly what they deserve." When Claire finally stood to leave, Lily looked up. "Will you come back?" Claire smiled. "Yes. And next time I hope you'll show me your stars." After the door closed, silence filled the room again. But it was a different silence now. Not empty. Waiting. That afternoon, while Lily and Rose napped on the couch, Ethan sat at his desk with a single file Claire had left behind. Not details, just a name. Daniel Carter, the girl's father. Ethan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He didn't feel anger. He felt curiosity and caution. Margaret entered quietly, cane in hand. "You're thinking too hard." Ethan smiled faintly. "You always say that. And I'm usually right." He showed her the name. Margaret read it slowly. "People don't disappear without reasons," she said. "Some are kind. Some are scared." "What if he wants them back?" Ethan asked. Margaret met his eyes. "Then we do what we've been doing. We listen." That evening, Claire called. "We've located Mr. Carter," she said. "He wasn't aware of the situation until recently. He's asked about meeting the girls, slowly supervised." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Is that required?" "No," Claire replied. "But it may be healthy, if the girls are comfortable." Ethan looked at Lily and Rose, now awake, sitting cross-legged and working on a puzzle. "Let me talk to them," he said. He knelt beside them. "There's someone who wants to meet you." "Your dad." Rose froze. Lily asked quietly, "Does he know us? He wants to." Ethan replied honestly, "But only if you want that." A long pause followed. Rose leaned into Lily, then Lily nodded. "We can try," she said, slow. Ethan felt a strange mix of fear and respect. Slow, he agreed. The meeting took place in a quiet family center the following afternoon. Bright windows, neutral walls, toys neatly arranged. Daniel Carter arrived early. He stood when Ethan entered with the girls, his posture careful, restrained. A man in his mid-40s, calm eyes, nervous hands. "Thank you," Daniel said softly, "for bringing them." Ethan nodded. "This is about them." Lily and Rose stayed close to Ethan, observing. Daniel crouched, not too close. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Daniel." Rose hid behind Lily. Lily studied him. "You're real," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "I am." They didn't hug. They didn't rush. They talked about small things, school, drawing, snow. When Rose finally spoke, it was quiet. "Do you know about stars?" Daniel shook his head. "I'd like to learn." After 20 minutes, Lily stood. "That's enough for today." Daniel nodded immediately. "Thank you for trying." As they left, Daniel looked at Ethan. "I don't want to take them away," he said earnestly. "I just want to be present." Ethan believed him. Back home, Margaret listened carefully as the girls described the meeting. "He was nervous," Rose said. "But he listened," Lily added. Margaret smiled. "That's a good start." That night, as Ethan turned off the lights, he realized something important. This wasn't a battle. It was a balance. And the new year was only beginning. The week after New Year's Eve arrived with clean, sharp cold. Boston looked polished, under a fresh sheet of snow, beautiful from a distance, unforgiving up close. Inside Ethan Hale's townhouse, the heat stayed steady, the lights stayed warm, and the paper stars Lily and Rose had made remained in the window like quiet guardians. Routine began to settle. Not the old routine of silence and cautious breathing, but something new. Breakfast with small voices, cocoa warmed just right. Margaret's gentle reminders to sit down before you overdo it, and Rose humming softly while she colored at the table. Lily developed a habit of checking the door twice, as if confirming the house was still real. Ethan didn't mind. He preferred this. He preferred the meaning. Claire Morgan visited on schedule, clipboard balanced on one knee, while she watched the girls build a puzzle and Margaret fold laundry with deliberate care. "You're doing well," Claire told Ethan later privately. "You're consistent. That's what matters." Ethan nodded. "I'm trying to keep it steady." "Good," Claire said, "because the next step might feel less steady." Ethan's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Claire inhaled slowly. "We've made contact with their mother." The words moved through Ethan like a cold draft slipping under a door. "I thought—" He stopped himself. He didn't know what he thought, only that the house had started to feel like a home, and homes were fragile when the outside world remembered they existed. Claire continued, careful and professional. "Her name is Serena Vale. She called our office after seeing Daniel Carter's name on an outreach form. She wants to know where the girls are." Ethan swallowed. "Does she know they're here?" "Not yet," Claire said. "And she won't unless we proceed through the proper channels. But she's asking for a meeting. Legally, she can ask." Margaret, sitting by the window, looked up at that. Her eyes didn't widen in panic. They narrowed slightly in focus, like someone stepping into a hard decision. Ethan noticed Lily watching from the hallway, quiet as snowfall. Rose stood behind her, one hand gripping Lily's sleeve. Ethan's heart sank. Not because he feared Serena, because he feared what uncertainty did to children, how it seeped in through the smallest cracks. He crossed the room and crouched in front of the girls, keeping his voice low and even. "Hey," he said gently. "Nothing scary is happening. Claire is telling me some grown-up information. That's all." Lily's gaze flicked to Claire. "Our mom?" she asked. Claire knelt so she could be seen, not looming. "Yes," she said softly. "Your mom has contacted us." Rose's face tensed. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She just leaned into Lily's shoulder as if bracing against a strong wind. Ethan spoke carefully. No one is taking you anywhere today. Do you understand? Lily nodded once, but her eyes stayed serious. Do we have to see her? No, Ethan answered immediately. You don't have to do anything. You get choices. Margaret's voice came calm from the chair. And you get time. Claire's pen paused over her paper. We will not rush this, she agreed. If Serena meets the girls, it will be in a supervised setting with clear boundaries. If the girls do not want to meet, we respect that for now. Lily processed that. For now, she repeated quietly. Ethan felt the weight of those two words. Time mattered. People changed. Feelings changed. But children shouldn't have to carry the burden of adult timelines. That evening, after Lily and Rose had gone to bed, after Margaret had tucked the blanket around them like a promise, Ethan stood at the kitchen sink, hands braced on the counter, staring at nothing. Margaret approached slowly. You're afraid of losing them, she said. Ethan exhaled. Yes. Margaret reached for his hand. Then we keep doing the right thing. The lawful thing, the kind thing. And if Serena wants to fight? Ethan asked. Margaret's voice softened without weakening. Then we don't fight like enemies. We build a path. A safe one. Outside, the wind pressed against the window panes. Inside, the house stayed warm. Ethan listened to the quiet from upstairs, 2 small breaths in sync, like a single steady rhythm. He realized then this wasn't the end of the miracle. It was the part where miracles had to survive paperwork, patience, and painful honesty. Claire scheduled the first meeting with Serena Vale at a family services center downtown, bright lighting, soft chairs, a pot of lukewarm coffee that tasted like compromise. Ethan arrived early with Margaret. Margaret insisted on coming cane in hand, chin lifted as if she had always belonged in rooms where decisions were made. Her cheeks were slightly flushed from the cold, but her eyes were clear. You don't have to do this, Ethan told her gently as he helped her out of the car. Yes, I do, Margaret replied. If I can sit with a little discomfort to protect 2 children's sense of safety, then I'm doing it. Inside, Claire greeted them and guided them into a private room. Serena will be here any minute, she said. Thank you for coming. Ethan's jaw tightened. I want this to be respectful. It will be, Claire promised. Our focus is the girls' well-being. Always. The door opened. Serena Vale stepped inside and the air changed. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't loud. She looked like a woman who had walked through storms and learned to keep her voice steady. Mid-30s, dark hair, pulled back, hands trembling slightly as she clutched a folder to her chest. Her eyes landed on Ethan, then Margaret. And you're... Serena began, voice tight. I'm Ethan Hale, Ethan said calmly. And this is my mother, Margaret. Serena's throat bobbed. You have my daughters. Ethan didn't flinch at the accusation. They're safe, he said, each word placed carefully. They're warm. They're cared for. And we're working with Claire legally. Serena's eyes glistened. She swallowed hard. I didn't know where else to go. Margaret spoke gently, like she was addressing a frightened animal, no sudden movements, no sharp edges. We're not here to shame you, she said. We're here to figure out what protects Lily and Rose. Serena's shoulders dropped a fraction. I want to see them. Claire leaned forward. Serena, I need to be clear. Any contact will happen only if the girls agree, and it will be supervised. We need to assess what's best for them, not what feels best for adults. Serena looked down at her hands. I understand. Ethan studied her, searching for anger and finding something else instead. Grief, shame, determination. Why now? Ethan asked quietly. Not accusing, not blaming, just asking. Serena lifted her gaze and her voice trembled but didn't break. Because the date on the calendar changed, she said. And I realized I couldn't keep pretending I'd fix everything later. Margaret's eyes softened. Serena took a slow breath. I'm working on my life. I'm trying to be stable. I want to be worthy of them. The room fell silent. Ethan felt a complicated shift inside him, protectiveness, yes, but also the uneasy awareness that life rarely offered clean villains. Sometimes it offered people trying to climb out of their own mistakes. Claire opened Serena's folder and scanned. "I see documentation," she said, neutral, professional. "Thank you for bringing this." Serena nodded quickly. "I wanted to show you I'm serious." Ethan's voice lowered. "Do you understand that Lily and Rose have a life now, routine, safety? They're building trust." Serena's lips parted. "Yes," she whispered. "That's why I'm scared." Margaret leaned forward. "Then do not demand," she said gently. "Ask, and accept the pace they can handle." Serena blinked rapidly, then nodded. "Okay." Claire outlined the next steps: a child-focused plan, a therapist consultation, and if Lily and Rose agreed, a short, supervised visit in the center's playroom. Ethan listened, tension pulsing behind his ribs. Then Serena turned her eyes to him, and her voice softened into something almost childlike. "Thank you," she said, "for not treating them like a problem." Ethan didn't know what to say. Margaret answered for him. "Children are never a problem," she said. "Only a responsibility." When the meeting ended, Serena paused at the door. "Tell them," she swallowed. "Tell them I'm here, and I'm learning how to be safe." Ethan nodded once. "If they want to know, I'll tell them." Outside, snow began to fall again, light as ash. Ethan helped Margaret into the car, his mind loud with questions. Margaret squeezed his hand. "This is how healing starts," she said. "Not with perfection. With effort, boundaries, and love." Ethan stared out at the gray sky. He realized the hardest part wasn't protecting Lily and Rose from danger. It was protecting their hope from being crushed by adult chaos. The courthouse didn't look like a place where childhood should be discussed. It was all stone and echo and heavy doors, the kind of building that made voices feel smaller. Outside, the cold held steady, Boston still trapped in winter's grip, while inside the air was warm but tense. Ethan adjusted his tie in the hallway, then immediately hated himself for caring about something so shallow. Margaret stood beside him, cane planted firmly, her posture straight. Lily and Rose weren't there. Claire had arranged for them to stay with a trusted caregiver. They didn't need to witness adults negotiating their lives like paperwork. Ethan was grateful for that. Claire approached with a calm expression, a folder thick with forms. "This is a preliminary hearing," she said quietly. "It sets the framework. It doesn't decide everything today." Ethan nodded. "I just want stability for them." "And we can argue for that," Claire said. "But remember, our language matters. We don't attack. We advocate." Down the hall, Serena arrived. She moved slowly, as if trying not to startle anyone. Her eyes found Ethan. For a second, neither spoke. Then Serena nodded, small and respectful. Ethan returned the nod. A moment later, Daniel Carter arrived, too quiet. Hands in pockets, face tense with the discomfort of being late to a life that had already begun without him. The courtroom door opened. Inside, the judge sat, elevated gaze, sharp but not cruel. The room settled as if the air itself was taking notes. "Case regarding temporary placement and guardianship of minors Lily and Rose Vale," the judge said. Ethan's pulse thudded. Claire spoke first, calm and factual. She outlined what had happened on New Year's Eve, the discovery, the immediate care, the legal reporting, the temporary placement. No sensational details, no drama, only the truth carefully delivered. Then Ethan was asked to speak. He stood, hands steady at his sides. "Your Honor," he began, "I'm not here to claim ownership over anyone's children. I'm here to protect two kids who needed warmth, safety, and consistency." The judge watched him. "And you can provide that," "Yes," Ethan said simply. "With oversight, with structure, with respect for the law." Margaret spoke next, brief but powerful. "Since those girls entered our home, they have been treated with gentleness," she said. "No pressure, no fear. only care. And my son has followed every instruction given by Child Protective Services. Serena's turn came. She stood gripping the edge of the table. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. Your Honor, I'm not here to erase what my daughters have been through, she said. I'm here to rebuild the right way, with supervision, with support. She glanced at Ethan, then quickly away, as if afraid to ask for too much. Daniel spoke after her. I want to be involved, he said quietly. But I don't want to disrupt their stability. I'm willing to go slow. The judge leaned back, fingers steepled. What do the children want? Claire answered carefully. They have expressed that they feel safe with Mr. Hale and Mrs. Hale. They are open to supervised contact with their parents at their pace. The judge nodded slowly, then looked at each adult in turn. This is not a contest, she said firmly. This is a child-centered plan. Ethan felt Margaret's hand brush his arm, steadying. The judge's decision came measured, deliberate. Primary temporary guardianship remained with Ethan with continued CPS monitoring. Supervised visitation for Serena, supervised gradual involvement for Daniel, and a required therapeutic support plan to ensure transitions were gentle and child-led. A framework, a path. Not perfect, but protective. Outside the courtroom, Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. Serena approached him slowly. Thank you, she said, voice quiet, for not trying to erase me. Ethan's throat tightened. They deserve truth, he said, and safety. Daniel stepped closer too, looking uneasy. I want to do this right, he said. Ethan nodded. Then do it for them. Margaret, standing between the adults like a warm lighthouse, spoke softly. You can be more than a broken story, she said, if you choose it. As they walked back into the cold, Ethan felt something unexpected. Not victory, not defeat, a responsibility shared. And somewhere far away in a warm house filled with paper stars, two little girls were still allowed to believe the world could be kind. The Family Services Center felt different this time, less formal, softer. A small playroom had been prepared, sunlight through wide windows, a low table with crayons and paper, a shelf of books worn from careful use. Everything was arranged to invite, not to demand. Ethan arrived with Lily and Rose just before noon. They held his hands, not tightly, but with intention. Lily's eyes scanned the room, alert. Rose stayed close, her shoulder brushing Ethan's arm as if anchoring herself. Claire greeted them quietly. You're in control, she reminded the girls. You can stop any time. Lily nodded. Rose echoed her with a small nod of her own. Serena Vale waited inside. She stood when the girls entered, then immediately sat back down, remembering the boundaries discussed. Her hands rested open on her knees, visible still. She had dressed simply. No perfume, no distractions. Hi, Serena said softly. The word hung in the air. Lily didn't answer right away. She took a step forward, then stopped. We're only staying a little, she said. Serena's lips trembled into a careful smile. That's perfect. They sat at opposite sides of the table at first. Crayons rolled between them like neutral territory. Rose picked one up, a pale blue, and began to draw. Lily followed, sketching deliberate lines that slowly became a house with stars in the windows. Serena watched, eyes damp but steady. That's beautiful, she said. Is it a place you like? Lily nodded once. It's warm? Ethan stood back, giving space, heart pounding in a way he didn't recognize. Not fear, anticipation. He watched Serena listen more than she spoke. Watched her mirror Lily's pace, watched her ask permission before commenting. May I draw too? Serena asked. Rose slid a crayon across the table without looking up. Minutes passed. Then 20. No raised voices, no tears, just quiet coexistence. At one point, Rose glanced up. You look different, she said. Serena swallowed. I'm trying to be. Rose considered that, then returned to her drawing. When the visit ended, Lily stood first. "That's enough for today," she said calmly. Serena nodded immediately. "Thank you for coming." She didn't ask for a hug. She didn't ask for tomorrow. As they walked out, Rose paused and turned back. "We like blue," she said, pointing to the crayon. Serena's smile broke through at last. "I'll remember." Outside, Ethan exhaled. Lily looked up at him. She didn't push. No, Ethan agreed. She didn't. That mattered more than anything. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. Back at the townhouse, routine resumed with subtle adjustments. School enrollment paperwork, therapy appointments scheduled, breakfasts eaten with a little more laughter than before. Yet something delicate hovered beneath the surface. Lily grew quieter, not withdrawn, just thoughtful. She spent more time arranging the paper stars, aligning them just right in the window. Rose noticed. Ethan noticed too. One afternoon, Ethan found Lily sitting alone at the dining table, turning a crayon between her fingers. "You're thinking hard," he said gently, taking the chair across from her. Lily didn't look up. "Is it bad to like two places?" she asked. Ethan paused, choosing his words carefully. "No," he said. "It's human." She nodded slowly. "I don't want anyone to be sad." Ethan felt the weight of that, how children often tried to protect adults from feelings. Adults should manage themselves. "That's not your job," he said softly. "Grown-ups handle their own sadness." Lily looked up, then searching his face. "Promise, I promise," Ethan said. That evening, Margaret noticed it too, the way Lily lingered in doorways, the way Rose watched her sister with quiet concern. Margaret waited until bedtime, then knocked softly on Lily's door. "May I come in?" she asked. Lily scooted over, making room on the bed. Margaret sat carefully, smoothing the blanket. "When I was young," she began, "I loved two cities at once. Leaving one never meant I betrayed the other." Lily considered that. "Did it hurt?" "Yes," Margaret said honestly. "But it didn't break me. It taught me how big my heart could be." Lily leaned into her shoulder. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was healing. Downstairs, Ethan stood by the window watching snow drift past the stars. He felt the tension ease, not because problems were solved, but because they were being carried together. The phone rang. Claire's name flashed on the screen. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked. "Yes," Claire replied. "I wanted to check in. Serena has been respectful. Daniel too. I just wanted to say you're doing this right." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "Thank you." After the call, he turned off the lights one by one, leaving the living room lamp on as always. The second visit came a week later. Shorter. Softer. This time Rose brought a folded paper star. She placed it on the table between herself and Serena. "For remembering," she said. Serena didn't touch it at first. "May I keep it?" she asked. Rose nodded. Ethan watched from the corner, heart full and wary at once. He saw how Serena followed the girl's lead, how Daniel, present but quiet, kept his distance, how Claire monitored without hovering. Balance. Afterward, as snow began to fall again, Lily asked a question that stopped everyone. "Do we have to choose?" she asked. Ethan crouched in front of her immediately. "No," he said firmly. "You don't have to choose people. You choose what feels safe." Lily absorbed that. Rose squeezed her hand. That night back home, Margaret gathered everyone in the living room. The paper stars glowed softly in the window. "Tonight," Margaret said, smiling, "we celebrate staying." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Staying, yes," she said. "Staying warm, staying kind, staying together." They laughed quietly. Rose climbed into Ethan's lap. Lily leaned against Margaret's shoulder. Outside, the cold pressed in. Inside, the house held. Ethan realized something then, not with fear, but with gratitude. Family wasn't about who arrived first. It was about who stayed, who listened, who moved at the pace love required. And in this house on these winter nights, staying was the greatest gift of all. The final review meeting did not feel like a battle. There were no raised voices, no dramatic gestures, no urgency that pressed too hard against the room. Instead, it felt like a careful pause, one last moment to ensure every step taken had truly been for the girls. Ethan sat beside Margaret, his posture calm but attentive. Across the table sat Claire, Serena, and Daniel. A therapist's report lay open, its pages marked with gentle notes rather than warnings. Claire spoke first. "Lily and Rose have shown remarkable emotional awareness," she said. "They feel secure in Ethan and Margaret's home. They are open to continued supervised contact with both parents at their own pace." Serena nodded, hands folded neatly. "I don't want to rush them," she said quietly. "I just want to be consistent," Daniel added. "I'm willing to follow whatever structure keeps them steady." Ethan listened carefully. He felt no need to argue. The room already held something rare: alignment. Margaret leaned forward slightly. "Stability doesn't mean shutting doors," she said gently. "It means opening them slowly with care." The plan was finalized with deliberate clarity. Primary guardianship would remain with Ethan and Margaret. Regular supervised visits would continue with Serena. Gradual involvement from Daniel would expand only with the girls' comfort and professional guidance. Ongoing support check-ins and choice would always belong to Lily and Rose. Claire closed the folder. "This isn't an ending," she said. "It's a foundation." Later that afternoon, Ethan knelt in front of the girls in the living room, the paper stars glowing softly behind them. "We talked with everyone today," he said gently. "You'll keep living here. This is still your home." Rose let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. And Ethan continued, "You'll keep seeing your mom and dad slowly, safely, and only as much as you want." Lily thought for a moment, then nodded. "That feels right." Margaret smiled, her eyes warm. "Then that's what we'll do." No one cheered. No one cried. The decision settled into the house like fresh snow, quiet, soft, and exactly where it needed to be. Winter returned to Boston just as it always did. Snow brushed the sidewalks, lights shimmered in windows, and the calendar once again crept toward the final night of the year. Inside Ethan's townhouse, the house looked different now. Not bigger, not richer, just fuller. Lily and Rose sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully arranging familiar paper stars, some new, some worn from the year before. Margaret supervised from the couch, wrapped in her shawl, healthier than she had been in years. Serena arrived just before sunset, carrying a small box of homemade cookies. Daniel followed later, bringing extra cocoa mix just in case. There was no tension at the door, only greetings, only warmth. As evening settled in, the house filled with small sounds, cups clinking pages, turning soft laughter rising and falling like breath. Ethan watched from the doorway, a quiet smile resting on his face. A year ago, he had walked alone through frozen streets, convinced that silence was safer than connection. Now the silence here was different. It was peaceful. At 9 o'clock, Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Can we do the countdown together?" all of us, Ethan asked. "Yes," she said simply. They gathered near the window. Outside, the city shimmered, preparing for fireworks. Inside, Margaret held Rose's hand. Serena stood close, respectful. Daniel waited just behind, content to be present without pressing in. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. 3, 2, 1. Cheers echoed faintly from outside. Inside, there were smiles, quiet hugs, soft laughter. Rose looked up at Ethan. "This year feels warmer," she said. Ethan nodded. "It is, not because the winter had softened, but because they had learned how to face it together." The house grew quiet in the way only a safe house could. Not empty, not lonely, just settled. Outside, snow continued to fall slow and patient, covering the city in a clean white hush. Inside, the warmth lingered long after the guests had gone, as if the walls themselves remembered laughter and chose to keep it. Ethan stood at the top of the stairs watching Lily and Rose disappear into their room. The soft glow from the hallway lamp framed their small silhouettes as they moved with the confidence of children who no longer feared the night. "Good night," Rose said, already climbing into bed. "Good night," Lily added, pausing at the doorway. She looked back at Ethan, eyes thoughtful. "You'll leave the light on, right?" Ethan smiled. "Always." He watched until the door closed, until the quiet breathing on the other side of the wall confirmed sleep had begun. Then he turned off the hallway light but left the living room lamp on, just as he always had. Downstairs, Margaret sat in her armchair, shawl wrapped around her shoulders, hands resting peacefully in her lap. She looked tired, but it was the good kind of tired, the kind that came from being present, from giving something meaningful. "They're growing," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "So are we." Margaret smiled at that. "You know," she said, "I used to think healing meant going backward, fixing what was broken. But now I think it means building forward." Ethan sat beside her, leaning back, eyes drifting to the window where the paper stars still hung. Some were crooked, some had softened at the edges over the year. All of them stayed. "I didn't plan any of this," Ethan admitted quietly. "I just stopped walking." Margaret reached for his hand. "That's usually how the most important journeys begin." Outside, distant fireworks flared again, late celebrations, echoes of joy drifting through the cold air. Inside, the house remained calm, unshaken by noise or spectacle. Ethan thought of that first night. The alley, the cold. Two small voices counting quietly, waiting for something to change. He hadn't known then what he was stepping into. He only knew he couldn't keep walking. A soft sound came from upstairs, a sleepy murmur, then silence again. Ethan smiled to himself. Family, he realized, wasn't created in one dramatic moment. It was formed in hundreds of quiet choices, choosing to kneel instead of stand over, choosing to ask instead of command, choosing patience over certainty, choosing to stay. Margaret shifted slightly, her eyes closing. "You did good this year," she murmured. Ethan shook his head gently. "We did." He stayed there for a long moment after she drifted to sleep, listening to the house breathe, the hum of heat, the faint tick of the clock, the reassuring stillness that meant everyone was where they belonged. Eventually, Ethan stood and moved toward the window. Snow pressed softly against the glass, blurring the city lights into something almost dreamlike. He reached out and touched one of the paper stars, its edges warm beneath his fingers. It wasn't perfect. Neither was the path that had led them here. But it was real. And it was kind. Ethan turned off the last light and headed upstairs, the warmth following him step by step. As midnight passed fully into morning, the house slept, protected not by walls or locks, but by trust, by care, and by the quiet promise that no one inside would ever have to face the cold alone again. And that Ethan knew was the truest beginning of all. Did this story move you? Share your thoughts in the comments and rate this story from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss other heartwarming stories. Click on the last screen to see the next emotional chapter waiting for you. See you in the next story.